Mia, and I have Angela McDonald here also who's co-hosting. We're going to be talking about procrastination, and thank you very much for muting yourselves right now. But this is a participatory thing, so you can show your video if you like, and you can share as well. So one of the first things I wanted to ask is, everybody came here because I'm guessing that procrastination is something that you experience. So could you raise your hand if you feel like you've experienced procrastination before or experiencing it right now even? Do we know how to raise our hands? This is a good question too. Angela, where do we?
If they hover over their name.
I see. If you hover over your names, you can raise your hand or lower your hand. So thank you for sharing that. I can't see everybody's hands right now, but thank you for sharing that. And now I'm seeing some video now as well. Welcome.
And a lot of yeses in the chat box.
A lot of yeses in the chat box. Okay. Well, we all fall victim to this at different times. And I'm sorry, the video, I just messed up a little bit. My question to you is, I'm going to answer it for myself, but I'm going to ask you as well. What is the thing that you find that you procrastinate most about? And if you can write that in the chat box, and the picture will come up again. Sorry that it went away. Angela, are we back on the beginning picture? Thank you.
Yes, we are. And okay. Andre, can you see the chat? Can you see what's coming in the chat?
I can't yet.
Okay, that's fine. I'll let you know kind of what's coming in.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay.
Let me see, maybe I can see it up here. Sorry, everybody, this is my first time doing a webinar on this system, and so Angela is kindly offered to assist and help me make sure that it runs okay. So anyway, my name is Andrea Mia, and I'm flailing around here a little bit. I have been a coach for about 7 years now and worked at UNC Chapel Hill's Business School for quite a while, working on leadership and also coaching, executive coaching for people in the MBA program. And I've worked in Japan for a while, and the Netherlands, and several other countries making films, actually. That was my other life, was making films, which sometimes I still indulge in. So procrastination has been something that has kind of fascinated me, and I see it as a aspect of learning, and have done research on how we learn, and also on procrastination and tried and true ways of being able to overcome procrastination. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is actually learning, and that if we are more successful if we are engaged in the process of learning, and we're aware of how we learn best, and that there are different ways to learn. What they found in studies is that the more aware you are of learning and of the process of learning and thinking about learning, the more successful you'll be as a learner. So being able to take that step back and looking at yourself and looking at how you do things will actually make you a better learner as well. So we'll talk about a couple of strategies with regard to that as well. So on today's agenda, we're going to talk about learning to learn, a few things about that, and I would like you all to participate in any and all of this, by the way, okay? What is a habit? We'll be asking about that. We'll be sharing with the group a bit directly about that. And then we're going to talk about very specific ways that you can overcome procrastination. And one of the most important things to keep in mind when I'm starting to say this is that this is not one size fits all. You're going to take things that are going to be useful for you and leave behind the things that are not useful. And in developing a plan to combat procrastination or to be a better learner, both, okay? This is about making some conscious goals about what you want to do and then adjusting along the way. None of us are perfect. None of us, there's no expectation of that. The plans that we set out, we change and we see what works for ourselves. So do keep that in mind, that this is not about developing one plan, and if it doesn't work, you're screwed. This is about looking at yourself as a learner and figuring out what works best for you, trying these things out, and leaving behind the things that don't work and trying others. So I wanted to give that as a general overview. So that was, my individual solutions, learning, breaking it down, and changing. Changing being the most difficult things. And we'll talk about habits and how we have habits and how breaking habits is a difficult thing to do, but the key to which is changing what the process is before you get to the reward, and being conscious of the reward that you're working towards. Any questions so far, first of all, about what we're going to be talking about today? And you can either speak up or you can write in the chat room.
And Andrea, this is Angela. I'll let you know a little bit of what's happening in the chat since you can't see it. Yeah. When you asked about what they procrastinate on, I should say we, not they. We all do it.
All of us.
I'm not excluding myself. Yeah. It's definitely, there's a lot of talk about planning for study time. And when something's really hard and they're not sure how to tackle it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of all the aboves, and people are looking forward to hearing your advice.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's move on. Give me 1 second. So learning how to learn. This is something I want to ask you, first of all. Are you all aware of how you best learn? The answer you could give me could be, I'm a visual learner. I'm an oral learner, meaning through the hearing. With visual, I like doodling. That's what gets it in my system. Those are two possibilities. I learn only when I'm by myself, or I learn best in a group. That's another possibility. Do you have some sense of already what your best practice is in learning and retaining information? The thing to think about is, when I have been successful in the past of retaining information that I'm trying to learn, what did I do to do that? So for me, for example, I tended, when I was in high school, to cram things in at the last moment. I would do well on tests. I would retain very little. So I could get all A's on everything that I crammed in at the last moment, but the things I retained the most, so the things I learned the best, were things that I actually kept approaching in different ways. So I'm not sure what people have shared because I cannot see the chat right now, but I'm wondering what people are sharing at this point. And I'll see if I can see the chat. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'll give a little update, and again, feel free, anyone, to unmute yourself and speak up. But
yeah, we're getting you can talk.
Yeah, a lot of visual learners, and interesting, a lot of people who like to learn by themselves.
Okay, great.
I think I'm the exact opposite. I feel like I like talking about, I like rehashing it and talking about it in 5 different ways for it to really sink in, than to just sit and try to learn.
Right.
This person said, I'm best when I can talk to others for things like language. I learn visually, currently learning Chinese, and it's easier for me to learn the characters versus hearing it. I understand that.
Mm-hmm. It's also a very visual language, so that makes a lot of sense. What I've written down here is a couple of things, devices that you can keep in mind when you are challenged learning-wise. One is creating visual cues for yourself. And visual, it means a lot of different things. So it can be breaking things down into, I'm trying to memorize a phrase, like that phrase, the Mark Twain quote that I gave you, eat your frogs in the morning, which I'm sure you're wondering what that means. Eat your frogs first. So if I'm trying to remember what eat your frogs first is, EYFF, EYFF might be an if, might be something that I can remember easier. That's like how we, for example, you probably memorize the names of the planets that way. When you were in grade school and memorizing the names of the planets, they give a visual sort of way to do that, giving it other names, things that are easier for you to remember. But there's other things about the visual that can help with our learning, which is where you are when you're learning something, physically where you are. You might, for example, learn best when you're in your bedroom. It's good, though, for you to move to other spaces to learn the materials that you're learning in another space as well. What that does is it reinforces what you've been learning so that you don't associate it just with the space that you normally study in, but that you associate it with other spaces as well. It becomes a deeper learning that way. Does that make sense to everybody? You'll let me know by a yes or so in the chat room.
Yes, yes, yes. Lots of yeses.
Okay. Because what this is we're playing with the brain, and we're playing with ways that the brain retains information. And if you are thinking about something and trying to study things in different locations, it gets it into the brain in a deeper way, basically. So if everything you study is in one location, one set of lighting, let's say one color even, it limits how well it's going into your system, or how deep it is, or how long you're going to retain it. So the more that you can think about these things that you're studying in different locations with different visual stimuli, that can help you retain more as well. So that's what I'm saying about learning different places. The other thing is to move. They've shown in repeated exercises that exercise, moving around, shaking up the brain, getting some oxygen in there, that also helps you retain information much better. It also gives you the opportunity through moving and through sleep of having a break, basically. They found in one study, and I have this at the end of the presentation, that if you have better sleep and you actually have a good night's sleep, your ability to perform is that much higher as far as learning itself goes. Being able to retain information, being able to make connections, that your brain can take this in basically and make something of it, whatever it is that you're studying. So moving, sleep, learning in different locations, and creating visual and oral stimuli to remind you of what it is that you are, what you're trying to learn, depending on what your focus is. And I said oral could be music, literally, that you're sing-songing things, that you have a rhythm on how to memorize things. That will stay longer if you're an oral person, basically. Any questions about that to start with? And
Andre, there are a couple questions.
Okay.
And I know a couple people said they're in places where they can't speak. They can listen, but they can't speak. So a good question here is, how often should a break be, especially when they're studying, they're really interested?
We are totally going to get into that. And some of this is totally based on science, although you may be individual. So give me a second and we'll get to that next. Any other questions?
How much is enough sleep? Someone's asking if 4 hours is enough, and someone else is suggesting 8 hours.
Okay, so there's a good friend of mine who's a very famous editor, actually, who has lived, I think he's 75, 76 now. He lives on 4 hours of sleep. And he's not sacrificing it for himself or anything. This is how he functions best in life. They say that 8 hours of sleep is necessary. You need enough sleep that you wake up rested. So the answer is not one that I can give you, that you need 6.5 hours and you need 8 hours and you need 9 hours, okay? That I can't give you, but it is about being rested. And so that is about getting good sleep as well. Some people have problems falling asleep. Some people have problems staying asleep. Some people have problems waking up groggy, basically, from their sleep and not feeling like they got enough. A lot of this goes to good sleep hygiene and having a routine before you go to sleep in order to fall asleep well and in order to stay asleep. That's a big subject, but I will just say that the answer is not that I can give you a number. That's something that you do have to discover for yourself best. And make sure that it's not about the number of hours, but that you wake up with rest and that your brain has actually been able to take a break. Any other questions?
Any advice for night owls? The person concentrates better at night, but has to wake up early the next day.
I think that's very difficult if you have to wake up early the next day. I know people who they function best at 2 in the morning, and they have structured their lives so that they do not have to be anywhere till 11 in the morning. That is one way to do it. If not, you're going to be living in sleep deprivation all the time. If you're up until the middle of the night and you have to wake up at 6 in the morning, that's a problem. So I don't have any great strategies other than if you know that best about yourself and you know that that's something you cannot adjust, you need to figure out how to adjust other things about how you're running your life.
And should we switch subjects often or study one topic for a long period?
It depends on the subject that we're talking about, but generally the best idea is to switch things that you're working. This actually goes to the time issue, okay? So we'll touch on that with the time issue as well, okay? I just want to make sure we get all of that in that one. Any other questions?
I think a couple others are going to be related to your time as well. So how about we let you continue?
Yeah, we'll move on.
And then we'll pop those up.
This was just the cute quote that goes to one of the essential things about procrastination. So now we're going to talk about procrastinations and ways to deal with it, and this will touch on the time issue. This quote is cute, but it's actually serious. Eat a live frog first thing in the morning, and nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day. The idea behind this is whatever it is that's sitting in your way that is the most annoying and the most frustrating and the thing you don't want to do, the thing that like, I'll do anything else, I'll clean the house before I do this, that's the thing to tackle first. That's not the thing to leave to the end of the day, that's the thing to do first so that you have a sense of accomplishment, first of all, and the thing that you keep avoiding is the thing that you look at first. Now, you may not finish it because you may hate this thing. I don't know what this thing is, okay? But it may be a subject that you're not particularly into. But the idea is to schedule it first thing, not to put it off, and to get beyond it as fast as you can. And Angela, totally interrupt me if people have questions or want to contribute something.
Yeah, I think there's, everyone's sounding very interested. I'm getting some nice comments. So I think that, again, and if you want to make sure I ask your question, please, I'm watching the chat there and yeah.
Okay. So we're actually going to do a little share your thoughts thing right now. And this is to set up you thinking about what some habits that you're in. But first I want to talk about, and this can be a small goal or a bigger goal, but if you could share, a few people or everybody, share what is the goal that you have in mind. Maybe the goal that you have in mind in taking a Udacity course. You can focus it on that if you like. But I'd like you to give some thought for a moment to what is your goal. I so wish I could see the chat.
Andrea, if you maybe hover down at the bottom, it might allow you to, mine is next to my share button. Sometimes when you present, it does kind of move away.
Yeah, let me look and see. Chat. Yeah, oh, aha.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Happiness is starting to be mine. Although I've been looking at Kaka and who else? Two of you. I've been able to see your pictures this whole time, and so I've been actually talking to you. Okay. And you all are able to see the chat as well, is that right?
Yeah, it looks like everyone can see it. I see them because there's been some responses back and forth. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay, and be set for the market. Okay, these are great, great goals everybody has. Okay, let's move on. So keep that in mind, that goal. If I had a piece of paper, I'd have you write it down, but I don't. We're going to talk a little bit about what habit is. So you see this lovely picture that I have here, the habit loop hack. And I want to explain this a little bit to you. So there's three aspects here, the cue, the routine, and the reward. We're going to spend more time talking about what the reward is. But I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here, okay? So the cue is that I need, the cue is more like a trigger, basically. So the trigger is I need to study Dutch because I know enough Dutch that I should be able to speak better, but I don't really like studying it. So I want to learn Dutch. Oh, you know what I want to do now? I want to eat something because I'm trying to avoid studying Dutch, and I am now going to reward myself by eating something. And because I feel better that way. So I'm looking for what I'm looking to identify is what is the trigger, what is the thing that that's annoying me, that is that puts me into not studying anymore, basically, is the annoyance of I don't really want to study Dutch. Maybe I don't really feel comfortable with it. I feel kind of incompetent with it, and I feel down on myself because I haven't done it. Okay. My routine is I'm going to avoid it, and I'm going to avoid it by going into the kitchen, and I'm going to grab something to eat. And my reward is, oh my God, I feel so much better now. My stomach is full. My brain feels calm. Okay, now I'll go back and sit down and try to study my Dutch again. Oh, I want to avoid studying Dutch. And I go into the same routine a bit again, basically. What we're looking for when you change a habit is the habit the thing that you go to, we want to change how you get there. So actually, I'm not being very articulate there. Let me try this again. The reward that I was going for is that I wanted to feel calm and I wanted to feel a bit supported, basically. And then I could start studying Dutch again. The routine was I went to the kitchen to eat. That's the habit that I want to change. I don't want to go to the kitchen to eat because it's sort of a false sense of security, but I do want the reward of I want to feel secure enough and calm enough that when I study, I can be focused, basically, and keep moving forward on my goal. So a question I would have for you is, what is the routine that you can sometimes get into? So something triggers you and you go into a routine. Another routine of mine I'll just share with you, cleaning the house. I will clean the refrigerator rather than do a task that I want to do. I don't know if any of you do that sort of craziness, but I will clean things rather than do the task in front of me because I'm just avoiding it. And the reward that I get is I actually accomplished something. That stuff needed to be clean. I feel better about it.
So you can come to my house and procrastinate.
Oh, yes, I'm very good at that. By the way, that's only in my own home that
I darn. Okay.
I actually clean. But that's one of my weird routines that I get into. So a question that I would have for you is to think about, and this is stuff that you can share, write down yourself, or share in the chat. But think about the tasks that you put in front of yourself that are challenging and what you start doing instead. And what is the feeling that you get out of doing that thing instead. The thing that we want to change with a habit is, look, it's good that I clean my house. That's a wonderful thing. That's not a good habit to get into as far as studying goes. It just, you know, just like eating is not necessarily a good habit for that. But figuring out what the feeling is that I want to have, that reward feeling that I can have, and working towards that in a positive manner, that is something that I want to do. One of the things that I like doing, and I'll just give this as an idea for everybody, is I like having candles lit. I look at a reward, sometimes a little reward, and we'll get to this time management thing also. This is part of it, is finding rewards that we can give ourselves that we work towards. So I like lighting candles. I won't light candles until I feel like I have worked towards that to light the candle and enjoy that. Maybe you like having tea, and maybe you can replace ice cream with tea and work towards that. Something that's a little healthier, something that gives you a little more boost than, let's say, the ice cream of this picture. So the question is, the cue or the thing that might trigger you, basically, especially with regard to, we're focused on studying right now and learning, that what comes up for you when you start to sit down to learn that might trigger you or might basically set you off course. This can be a very personal thing, so it may not be something you want to share in the chat, but you are welcome to. It could be emotions around the subject matter. It could be feelings around competence or incompetence around certain subject matters and not others. It could be, honestly, it could be noise in the room. You know, like simple things like, I am not in a quiet space and I can't think, and therefore I'm going to go do all these other things. Think about, for you, what it is that can trigger you to lose your focus and set you into a spiral of, now I need to go eat, or I'm giving my examples. You have your own examples, okay? Eat or clean the refrigerator. Who is that? Verani. That's a good one. Every distraction out there on the internet as something. Okay. Adrian, you bring up something that we will touch on a little bit, but I thought I'd touch on it now to begin with. But all this input that we're getting from social media, from just looking at your email, from what's happening in the news right now, these are all wonderful distractions that we go to that we think we're doing things with, and are exactly the things that we need to shut down at the beginning when we are going to be studying and use as a reward, as opposed to the distraction itself. So you work towards the reward. Fear of missing out. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing these things. And I think if you're looking in the chat at other people's thoughts, you may be able to identify some more of your own, and also realize that a lot of us have the same challenges. Yeah, this whole, you know, how many things can we focus on at once, basically, makes it hard to do anything at all. And it seems like that's what a lot of people are falling into. Thinking of failure, it's that daunting task in front of yourself. That's one of the things that we will talk about. One of the ways to break that down is start making smaller increments that we're focused on. Okay, let's move on a little bit. Oh, what happened here? Do you see anything, Angela?
I just see a pretty background.
So
It's
do
like
I.
pink and purple.
Oh, I don't know what that was about. Okay. So now I'd like you to think about how you reward yourself. So, you know, it's funny, some of your triggers, I'm going to say, could be your rewards eventually. You're looking for fun things on YouTube, could be a reward. For me, lighting a candle can be a reward. Other ideas, going outside and getting some fresh air is a reward. Some of these are very small, some of these are much larger. But I'd like you to actually really think about, what are the tiny rewards that I can give myself for staying focused? What they found is that with regard to procrastination and everything in life, that we subconsciously or consciously work towards our rewards. We don't work towards our torture. We don't want to punish ourselves. So the more that we can say, this is a reward that I want, or that I would like to do, and work towards that timing wise, the better off we are. You may love studying. Studying may be your reward. Studying may not be everybody's reward. Chapter in a book, that's cool. Meditation is an excellent one. So studying things that is not for university, studying anything else, maybe the reward. Great to have a list for yourself of what your go-to rewards are, and thinking about them consciously as things that you want to do after you've studied, basically, so that you're walking a thought nap. Excellent. Okay. So now what we're going to do is discuss 7 strategies to get us through procrastination. And this lovely tomato timer over here has a lot to do with the timing that we're going to talk about. So and by the way, some of these may be totally obvious to you, and some of these may be the first time you're hearing about them or thinking about them, okay? So this is 7 ideas that you can incorporate. Some of them, not all of them, and mix and match, basically. The idea is to come up with a plan, trying some of these strategies, and then let's assume the plan fails. That's okay. Then it's coming up with another plan as to how it's going to work. Part of it is being engaged in your life and in the way you think and in the way you succeed, and to be able to stand back from it and find out what actually works best for you. Okay, so I'm going to give you ideas, and these are all good ideas. They may not be all the good idea for you. Okay, so the first one, smaller challenges, especially for people who start to go into the dread area of, my life is going to be a failure if I don't finish this class. Okay, giving that as an example. Or I'm a failure for even having taken this class because I should have learned this before. Where your mind may go to these very extreme places where it doesn't help you to be there. And the idea with smaller challenges is, don't put in front of yourself either your life's goal or even the course's goal, but break down what the small things are that you want to achieve during this study session, or that you want to achieve during some time period, basically, that you might be procrastinating from. Make the challenge as small as you can make it. It may be, I am just going to read this chapter. Without judgment, I'm going to get through this chapter and figure out what I need to take away from it. Make the challenge as small as you possibly can. Some people work with a planner journal. Planner journal is something I worked with a lot in high school. I used to be like, okay, I have an hour for math. I have an hour for history. I have an hour for this. And that's my 3 hours. And this is how it's going to break down. And I thought it was really cute, like, you know, graphing it and stuff like that. Now I feel lucky when I have all my appointments in my book and I actually go to them. I'm not very good at having a planner journal, but this works amazingly well for some people. Really planning out their days or their study time, what you're planning on doing during that study time, for example, what it is you want to achieve. This goes back to the smaller challenges, but some people work really well with the planner journal. The idea is with both of these, and with many of the things that I'm bringing up, is start to have a plan and make the plan not a big thing, but a small thing. So timer. So you see this tomato timer here, the Pomodoro timer. There's a professor who came up with this idea and has tested it. And it has to do with how long can we concentrate for and actually be focused and actually retain information. What he came up with was that the average person can only retain information for about 25 minutes. Now meaning sitting down and studying for 25 minutes before they need to take a break, they need to go do something else, they need to think about something else, they need to breathe, they need to meditate, they need to light a candle. The idea of the Pomodoro timer, which is just the name of that timer that he happened to use there, and I've put a link to these different timers that you can get online, is that you set a timer for the amount, 25 minutes, let's say, okay? You have a little ADD, you can't sit for 25 minutes, that's fine. Figure out if it's 15 minutes that you can sit for. This is not about sitting for 2 hours straight. I'm really good at that. I can actually focus for a pretty long time. 25 minutes might be a little short for me. But regardless, I've done it with 25 minutes. The idea here is that you are setting a timer, starting it when you start whatever task it is that you want to do. And you know by the time that timer goes off, you are stopping doing that task. And you are going to reward yourself with something. Now, you can reward yourself with something small at a 25-minute timer. If you are studying for 2 hours and breaking it into 25-minute segments, at the end of the 2 hours, you may have a bigger reward you're working for. So if at every 25 minutes you have a small reward like light a candle, have a cup of tea, stand up and stretch and do yoga stretches. Look, everybody with social media. I'm going to look on social media, but I'm timing it out for only 5 minutes before I get back to work. Those are the small sort of 5-minute rewards you're looking for. And then at the end of the 2 hours, you get a bigger reward. Maybe the bigger reward is I'm going to take a nap. Maybe the bigger reward is I am going to really look on social media and respond to everybody who's been chatting with me for the last 2 hours that I have been incommunicado. You figure out what your bigger reward is also. So given a plan of I'm going to study for 2 hours, you should have 3 breaks in the middle of them, small breaks, and then a larger break at the end. All of those breaks, they should be something that you are looking forward to. What I find with the 25 minutes also, which is kind of fascinating, is no matter what you're trying to do, if you know exactly how much time you need to do it, or you have to do it, not what you need to do, or you have to do it, most often that is what you're able to accomplish in that time. You work faster, you're more focused, and whatever it is you set out to accomplish, you can generally accomplish during that time. It's amazing how many things we think about when we are unfocused that distract us. What I've written down here is savor happiness. This is the rewards we're talking about. This is about really working towards that 5-minute reward of going and walking around the block or playing a game. Enjoy it. This is something that you've earned. Having a dance party, I love that. So that's a perfect sort of small reward, by the way. The 3 to 4 minute dancing in the room. It's exactly the right amount of time, gets your brain going to someplace else entirely, gets you moving, and then you can sit back down again. And you can plan, like, what is the music I'm going to go listen to? Anybody have any questions about these and about the Pomodoro timer? This is one of the most effective things for dealing with procrastination, by the way. No questions? Okay. Relax and enjoy, and learn to trust the system. So these two things are a little different from each other. And it's sometimes easier to tell people to relax or tell people to stop worrying than it is to do it. But the amount of energy that you put into worrying and to being tense about things takes away from what it is that you're focused on. So finding ways to set the tasks small enough so that you can accomplish them and that you can relax about it as you're doing it is actually very important. The more agitated you are, the less likely it is that you're going to finish tasks. Tabata training for workouts? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I think Adrian made that this is a little like Tabata, where you have very intense HIIT workout basically, and then you have to take a break. Interesting how our brains and our bodies can function similarly to each other as we evolve. Learning to trust the system. So part of this is that leap of faith. That leap of faith that if you do some of these things, and if you have a plan and you do them, that they can work. So that's what the learn to trust the system is. As I said, you're going to have a different system than I'm going to have. And Mehmet, Darren is going to have a very different system than Kaka Ruto. Okay? You're just going, and I hope I'm saying your names right, but you're going to have very different, thank you. You're going to have very different systems from each other, but you have to try to start to trust that they will work and actually incorporate them, not keep questioning yourself. And the last thing about this is to develop a new plan. This may not work for everybody. Like your plan, you may have gone, okay, great. Andrea said do this. I'm setting out the entire plan. I'm going to be doing it perfectly tomorrow. And it didn't work for you. It didn't work for you because you got a phone call in the middle of the thing. And then you got totally distracted and you got into that phone call and the 25-minute timer went off. You ignored it. You continued with the phone call. You didn't get back to things. That plan did not work. Okay? Maybe you should have turned off the phone during that time period. That might have made that work better for you. Maybe putting the phone in another room and that you're going to ignore it. You have to figure out like what's going to be standing in your way for accomplishing these plans, but then also figuring out a different plan if it doesn't work for you. A lot of mothers and fathers who work from home have children in the home. How are you going to figure out how to be able to be responsive to them and also have time to focus? Maybe it means you're studying at night. Maybe it means that you set them up with a game before you study and say, hey, I'm going to need 25 minutes before we visit with each other again. Who knows they respond to that or not. But it's about figuring out what the triggers are that start to pull you away from whatever it is your goal is. A cue that reminds you to use the Pomodoro. I would actually, every time that you sit down to study, put a Pomodoro timer up on your machine as well. You can bookmark it and you can think, okay, it's time to study. Let me put a timer up. Thank God I have only 25 minutes I have to focus. And what am I going to do for fun afterwards? I'm just responding to Jonathan Garrell's question. So these cues can be, it's time to study. That could be your cue for that. You could also make it your home page as a reminder. Maybe somebody else has an answer for that also, an idea of how to cue yourself to even start. Angela, if you have any ideas, I'm open.
Well, I'll tell you, I actually like, so many of us now use timers on our phone, but I kind of like the idea of a big obnoxious red tomato on my desk. I think it'd be hard to miss. So I think, a silly timer like that could be a really good thing, because it's a little more physical, a little more like, you can touch it, feel it, stick it there, and it's not your phone sitting there. Again, that can cause distractions as well.
As a distraction, right. Someone up above also asked about the 50 minutes or not. And as I said, I am actually, I can sit for quite a while and study when I have the focus. I'm better working with a timer because it makes me work faster in a sense and more concentrated and less distractible. But your timing might be that, like, I really feel like I get my groove at 20 minutes and I want another good 15 minutes of focus or 20 minutes of focus before I stop. So that, 50 minutes works for you and it really works for you, great. Set your timer at 50 minutes. When they've done studies before, they're finding that 25 minutes is about all that most people can tolerate before their mind starts to wander and they start to want to do other things. And so we're trying to capitalize upon that. So the college semesters and online courses, that seems to me to be an excellent opportunity for the Planner Journal, because this is a larger issue. Aditya Banik brought up, which is, okay, I need to organize my whole life, but all of these things basically going on, not a study session, not one class that I'm trying to not study for, but all of it. And I would say Planner Journal is probably one of the best things for you to start thinking about, but also not freaking out. So setting those smaller goals in front of yourself each day is important. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Aditya, but it's what I would start thinking about. Any other questions that I missed that we should talk about a little bit? This just gives you some of the people that I've referenced basically in this to, I guess you can review basically if you want to read more about it. And this is more of a question and answer time. So Angela, are there any, I'm going to just open up the chat bigger so I can see. Any other questions anybody has and that have not been answered so far? I have a question. What is the best way to avoid or stop procrastination? So I've just presented a few different ways for you to avoid or stop procrastination. So we've talked about timers. We've talked about setting small goals. We've talked about having a journal. We've talked about having a goal in mind to begin with, basically. And then smaller goals within that you want to accomplish. And one of the major things is recognizing what your triggers are, what your response to the trigger is to get your reward, basically, and seeing if you can stop some of the things that are triggering you away from whatever it is you want to focus on. So for example, if social media is one of the things that is totally a distraction for you, use it as a reward, not as a distraction. Shut it all down when you want to focus on study. Don't give yourself that opportunity to start flailing around. Have a timer. Know that this is, during this time, this 25 minutes, this is all I'm doing. So working towards reward. I hope that answers your question, Michael. Okay. Any other questions anybody has? Do you feel like you have some new tools now at your disposal to try to combat this problem that we all have? Oh, by the way, Michael, I didn't mention the one other one that I started with, which was eat your frogs first thing in the morning. Whatever is most distasteful for you, start with that. So this seminar will be up online. I don't know exactly what the timing of it will be, but it will be up online and available for you to visit again and to take down notes. You are quite welcome, everybody. Okay, YouTube page. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining this seminar today. It's one I've never given as a webinar before, so I appreciate you being tolerant while I messed up technology-wise, and Angela helped me out here. I thank Angela McDonald for being a co-host with me and helping me run this session. I wish you all the best of luck, and I also hope that you find rewards that you work towards that will really help you see through your goals. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was fabulous, and I've been taking notes myself. So thanks a lot.
Okay, quite welcome. We'll see how we start.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.